What's the most unexpected or interesting encounter you've had with an ex-lover years after the breakup? Ex came to a function I was at and informed me he would not agree to some of son's trust fund money being released to help 20-year-old son traveling OS for music. Bear in mind he'd lived OS for most of son's childhood and had no idea of his interest, also no custody or visits. He had just moved back and decided this was wrong because he thought so. I looked at him and said, "Don't worry, it's all covered, trust fund was never thought of. And why on earth would you think your opinion was ever needed or wanted?" So I still relish the look on his face so many years later. My abusive ex texted me a year after I broke up with him. He asked how I am, if I still worked at the same place, where I live now, and that he misses me. I almost replied to him until I realized that he was pretending to be his 9-year-old daughter whom I was very close with by using her mobile number to message me. I have blocked him and everything. He thought he was being smart by purposely making grammatical errors to make it seem like I was texting a child. Joke's on him, cause I know how his daughter texts and he doesn't. He hasn't been able to contact me since. I never got over my first time. He really liked me, but he stupidly told his best friend who told everyone. Let's just say that was the end of that. In my 40s I suddenly felt like I needed to talk to him. Everyone told me to let it go and get over it. For whatever reason that made me more certain. I had so much shame around sex I needed to let go. I messaged him and he got right back to me like he also really needed to talk. It was super healing for both of us. Kinda off topic? But maybe not. She randomly started talking to me again under the guise of wanting to be friends, but I suspected otherwise. She interviewed for a job near where I lived and asked if I thought she should take it and move there. I was indifferent and talked about women I was dating. She eventually stopped talking to me entirely and I found out she was knocked up and married 6 months after she attempted to rekindle our relationship. She was pretty awful to me, so it felt good that I got to reject her. I'm pretty sure I caught my ex-boyfriend playing Ding Dong Ditch with my doorbell around 2013. It was sometime after my son was born. I heard the doorbell and answered the door. I saw some guy, about his height and build, running south from our driveway, with a gray hoodie pulled over his head. He wouldn't answer any texts I sent to him. After that, I still have no idea why he did that. He was happily married to a girl that went to high school with both of us. Years prior to that, 10 years ago when I signed up to Facebook, the first message I received was, "Are you dollar that worked at dollar dollar?" I was who she thought I was and she was the love of my life 25 years prior. She dumped me for somebody else back then. At the same time that the later contact happened, I had just started dating my now wife of 5 years. It didn't complicate anything as we are in different countries. She had a son but wasn't in the happiest of relationships by the sound of it. I invited her to my wedding. We dated and at the time I figured, oh, we've known each other for years. It didn't work out, but hey, now I met my person, it'll be fine. She was lovely, however my person definitely struggled with the idea of her there. It was an emotional breakup, but it turned out to be a nice time. My son was the best man and he stepped up and totally charmed everyone and sat with her daughter and just chilled with that part of my past. Ex from undergrad, who I broke up with 6 years earlier for being a bit too intense, showed up in my building as a technical sales rep for a laboratory equipment company. I am on the East Coast, and her office and I presume sales region is on the West Coast. This company is huge and sells a ton of equipment all over the US. I'm pretty sure she looked me up and cold called some other guys in my building, just to coordinate a sales meeting. I met my ex and she said she was a fairly famous actress. It was really remarkable, and sort of a wake-up call to realize she'd made so much of herself while I was still doing the same thing I'd done when we were together. To some degree, I wanted to believe that what she'd accomplished was due to dumb luck, and to another degree, I wanted to compliment her on making it so far past what either of us had expected for the other. 20 years later he told me he had started doing raw sex parties. He caught HIV and it was a strain that drugs weren't very helpful for. He died of AIDS. He and I always used condoms and he was big on condoms and testing. He told me he just gave up and didn't care anymore. I didn't attend the funeral because I dated him 20 years ago and he died 1,500 miles away from me. I wasn't expecting the encounter at all. 3 years after my first GF and I broke up. She tried to get back with me. We were sitting in her car and she asked me out again, which I promptly turned down because of the reason we originally broke up. She said, "If you take me back I'll suck your dick right now." Hardest moment. While she did give good head, I was unwilling to get back with her. Just can't be with someone who doesn't believe in dinosaurs. I got a story. I bumped into my ex in front of a subway station 2 years after we broke up. We both blocked each other's number at that time. Once we bumped into each other, we greeted and we hugged, and we made the same mistake of let's catch up over a cup of coffee. Then we both unblocked each other and dated for another 2 years to break up again. This time I blocked email, everything. My ex, we dated medium distance when we were like 13-15 and I really loved each other. We never met in real life, but for what we had, we thought it was love. Definitely have a trauma bond. We don't keep in contact, however we talk. There are so many things we know about each other that no one else knows, and sometimes it feels nice to talk to a familiar face and just get it all out. I've answered a few posts, but this is a humdinger. Not a lover but potential. When I was married she was 2. Bad partner, but she became a mother of 4 with not great prospects. Divorced the husband, set herself up alone. We talked. I'm widowed, she's in her own space. Flirt, get close, and then when I decide well I need to work on myself she gets a bit clingy. Not great. We bumped into each other at an aquarium. We both had newborns. I saw her with her kid while my partner was feeding our kid. I ran off, got my kid, and was like, "Tada, I have one too." We both laughed at the whole thing. We kinda broke up in a bad way, but had a ton of mutual friends. The years wore the animosity down and it was very obvious we had changed over the years. I had an unexpected encounter with my ex-girlfriend while I was scuba diving in Bohol in the Philippines. We had first met when I started to learn how to scuba dive in Oahu, but I simply didn't expect to run into her, underwater on the other side of the ocean. I waved to her, hoping we could meet again at the surface, but she just squeaked at me and swam away. I bumped into my ex while I was with my cousin at the Apple store in the mall. He was asking one of the employees for a job application. We got to talking. Turns out he dropped out of college, so his guinea pig "I wanna pick up college girls" experiment in which I was the guinea pig was all for nothing. I never did find out if he got the job, though. Was using the motorized chair at Target on Black Friday because I had a broken ankle. I was there with my college boyfriend, but we were in my hometown. We were leaving after getting a vacuum and the chair lost power in the crosswalk of the parking lot. Not one, but both of my high school exes walked by me as I waited alone in the crosswalk. I had an ex message me on Facebook about 10 years after I broke up with him to let me know he'd recently had a heart transplant. He then proceeded to recount the story of how he purchased a Porsche he probably couldn't afford while he was in the hospital. The conversation quickly reminded me why the relationship didn't work out initially. When I was 17 my ex stalked me for 2 years after breaking up. I used to work close to where he lived. He would message my friends saying that he could see me eating lunch, but I never saw him and I was in high alert. Still to this day I will get random DMs of him confessing his love. He is also a diagnosed schizophrenic. He broke up with me and moved on pretty quickly. We were in the same friend group and I actually became really good friends with his new girlfriend. She's amazing and I love her dearly. I got invited to their wedding and it was so beautiful. Now they have a little girl and are super in love. I'm so happy for them both. Never saw her naked or anything when dating. Years later, when I was in a relationship, me and my ex were talking about tats and she said she wanted one on her ribs and sent me a topless pic and she was pointing to her ribs where she wanted the tat. I was like, huh? Yeah, that would be a cool spot. Delete photo. An ex called me out of the blue about 3 years after the breakup, offering to explain why she dumped me out of the blue after a 2-year relationship. She also offered to buy and deliver me a new couch since her cats peed on mine and it always kinda smelled. Pretty sure that was to get my address. Somehow we ended up taking the same elevator in an office building several years after we split. I was visiting the building for an appointment and my hunch is that he worked in the building. We stood right next to each other but didn't acknowledge one another. Most awkward elevator ride ever. Just recently met up with a friend from years ago. We decided to go and try an old spot on top of a hotel roof near it was still unlocked and we were able to get up top and get a good rooftop fucking. Nothing like fucking a model on a roof near LAX with the planes coming in. He randomly called me one night about 2 years after breaking up. He apologized for hurting my feelings and we got to catch up. Basically just talking about life and how it was going. No hard feelings, but we never spoke again after that and I'm fine with it. A good ending in my book. I didn't have the experience but my friend told me about it. My GF at the time and my ex from a few years before met each other at my other friend's baby shower. She tried to not bring me up in conversation so it wouldn't get awkward. Luckily it happened while I was stationed overseas. I've only had 2 exes, Really, one of whom I haven't actually seen in like 9-10 years but had weird convos with as recent as a year ago, and she's married, while the other I slept with last weekend and we chilled and repeated the next 3 days before I had to work. It was surreal AF. I woke up to him in my bedroom. He said he rang the doorbell, and no one answered. Apparently, I didn't lock the garage car door. Needless to say, I was not happy. He was wondering why I was sleeping naked. No one was ever in my bed, but I didn't correct him on his assumptions. Not really proud of this one, but about a year after I broke up with my ex, I hooked up with his father. I was leaving his house in the morning as he was just getting home. It was really fucking awkward, so I just kept moving, blocked him and his dad, and never went back. We met up after 7 years of not seeing each other or talking. We chatted for 8 hours and got drunk, and it was like no time had passed at all. It was so comfortable. Now, back to no talking or being in each other's lives. The entire experience feels like a fever dream. This girl I once dated in high school. I saw her again like 20 years later and she was a guy now. He also told me I was a Nazi because I work in a prison. We don't talk anymore, but sometimes I'll tell people I once dated a dude. I once bumped into my ex at a costume party. We were both dressed as dinosaurs, and the awkwardness was quickly replaced by laughter as we roared and danced the night away. Sometimes, unexpected encounters bring unexpected joy. 10 years ago when I signed up to Facebook, the first message I got when I signed up to Facebook was, "Are you dollar that worked at dollar dollar?" I was who she thought I was. She was the love of my life. 20